for a quick of our Torah. Yesterday I spoke about Pharaoh trying to keep the narrative alive, even though the facts were going totally against him. And eventually, as we know, the facts will win out. As is a very common phrase, the facts don't care about your feelings. I've heard that somewhere. But uh, anyways, but the thing is, one of the biggest problems Moshe has is that some of the true believers in Pharaoh in the system were the slaves themselves, the Jews. This is a very common trait. Uh, some people will be true believers in a system that is failing even to the bitter end. Remember, there were young kids who were defending Nazi Germany as the Russians, the Americans, were approaching on Berlin. And everybody else knew that it was over. They still believed they could somehow save Germany from the Americans and the Russians and the British, etc. Or there were Jews who supported the Soviet Union up until the very end, when it was very clear the system was no good, that the people running the system themselves didn't believe in the system. Basically, they were in it for the money. But in Israel, as after the Soviet Union collapsed, somebody on Israel television got a brilliant idea. They went to kibbutz Yad Hana. Yad Hana was the only kibbutz that was actually tied to the Communist Party of Israel, the Moscow Line Communist Party. And they asked them to explain what was going on with the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union, etc. And it was one of the funniest things they ever did, because these people were straight. They were trying to explain within their system why the Soviet Union didn't really collapse, and it was a whole long thing. And it was just hilarious. But you also see this during Israel's recent war in Hamas. The media, the mainstream media in this country, would take what Hamas said and would report it as if it was true, and say, well, but Israel says this, they say this, we don't know who to believe. The fact that Hamas was shown to lie every time, it was 100% every time they spoke, they were lying. Didn't affect these reporters. They were true believers. They happened to be true believers in DEI and stuff like that, but they were true believers. And they couldn't let the facts get in the way of their narrative. They had to believe that people of, quote, darker skin or whatever, poor people were always righteous and rich people were always evil. The Torah doesn't take that view. According to the Torah, if you're sitting in judgment, you don't favor the poor or the rich or the poor. You assume you just go by the facts on the case. You can't let your emotions get involved. And Moshe, and Pharaoh, remember, he ruled by edict. He was a totalitarian dictator. Moshe did not become the leader of the Jews out of fear, but out of respect. And he always made sure that whatever he said would come to fruition. So at the end, and remember that some Jews were still running around in the desert in the Midbar saying, but we had it so good in Egypt. They still missed Egypt. Just as, by the way, to this day, there are people in Russia who miss Stalin. And our esteemed mayor, in his speech, actually quoted Stalin. A lot of people missed that one. The Roman embrace of collectivism was a line taken directly from Stalin. So, it's a problem that we have, that even when people are shown that something is wrong and that the narrative doesn't work, they still believe it. And our job is to always remember to keep on track. And even if the story doesn't go our way, we still have to go with the facts. We can't explain it away otherwise. something to think about. Kaddish Rabbanim.